Love me in London. Okay, hello everybody. And today I have the many-faceted individual as my guest. But what prompted this invitation to our LTV studios is that among his many talents, Mr. DeMaio is a producer. I'd like to welcome Tommy DeMaio to the Plays the Thing show. I went to see some of your openings in the Great White Way, which, as we know, it's Broadway. And I had seen Mornings at 7 and Home and Dracula, and most recently, I'm Not Rappaport. Now, the big question is, would you say that one of them was your favorite?
I think my favorite is Dracula, because it was one of the first thing we did on Broadway, and then brought it to London, rather than vice versa. So we opened on Broadway, and we had a huge success, a very big success. And I decided opening night in London, I'll take my whole family. So I took my sisters, my brothers, my aunts, my wife, and we all went to London for this big opening. And we had the same producers, which was one of me, director, set, costumes, but we didn't have a star. We had a somewhat star. I forgot his name at this moment. But anyway, the following day the reviews came out, totally disastrous. The star destroyed the show.
Oh,
so that
it
was,
can happen.
But on Broadway we had Judy, we had Franklin Jelly, we had many big stars in it, but in London it opened and closed. So we learned a lesson.
My favorite was Mornings at 7.
Oh, we
I'll
had
never forget.
so many great stars in it. Lillian
Yes.
Gish and Marina Sullivan, and God, there were so many stars. And half of them are gone, but we revived it about 3 years ago. It's still touring. Tours all over the world.
And I'm Not Rappaport, which was recently, it brought back
Theater.
some old stars.
Yes, we brought back Ben Marine and Hirsch.
Yes.
And it had a little good run at the Booth Theater, which is my favorite theater. That's where we did The Elephant Man, and we opened the Dracula there. It's my lucky theater. And it's touring. It's doing well on tour.
Oh, well, that's good to hear. And of course, when you go to the opening night, it's always nice to have those cocktail parties afterwards.
Yes, I always throw. I've done about 26 to 30, 32 shows actually, and I always do Sardi's first, always, and then on to a big party. But the last party was unfortunately, we did it at the Russian Tea Room. That was the last party the Russian Tea Room had. Now it closed.
It's closed.
Yeah, one of my favorite little restaurants.
Well, I think you have a lot of nice memories at Russian Tea Room.
Oh, God, we've had so many openings. We've had openings almost in the Tavern on the Green, the Copa, the Rainbow Room. We had the Plaza. We had lots of big parties.
Well, Mr. DeMaio, I was at your house last night for dinner, and I have a confession to make. I confiscated a few of your pictures from your gallery.
Recent, present, or future?
Well, I'm going to show you because I would like to know some of these. Not this, the first. This I'm going to leave for the last.
Oh.
How about this one?
That was in California for the Oscars. That's Madonna, and that's Harry Weinstein, and that's me at one of the parties prior to the Oscars. Harry always gives a party before the Oscar night. It's the party to go to. It's a beautiful party. It's usually held at the hotel, the Beverly Hills Hotel. And that's about 5 years ago. And it's nice. I've always gone to the Oscars. I've gone to the Oscars the last 30 years. So there's lots of parties prior.
Did you miss this picture?
I didn't look.
You didn't look.
I know.
It's a
It was
good
last
thing,
night, yes.
because then you probably would call
There's
the cops.
hundreds of pictures, unfortunately.
I know, and here is another one.
Oh, that's Sylvia Miles. Sylvia Miles, we've got a lot of parties. I went to her opening in 1978. She did the Tennessee Williams show in London called Total something. I forgot the name. But She's a great friend of mine. We play backgammon constantly. And the funny story is, about a month or 2 or 3 months ago, I was in Paris with a friend of mine. She is a publisher. And she says, Tom, do you mind if we go to see someone? We have to have cocktails. I'll call and see if it's okay. And I said, oh, another friend of yours? Okay. So we could drive up in Paris, and we go to this house, and the butler opens the door, and here's this beautiful woman walks down. And she said, I don't know if you know who I am, but I'm Olivia de Havilland. I said, well, I think I know who you are. And I saw a backgammon set. I said, you know, I'm a fabulous backgammon player. I learned. And Sylvia, I said, do you know Sylvia Miles? She says, I always play with Sylvia. She's one of the best backgammon players. Sylvia yet has to win. But she's a dear friend of mine, and I hope someday we do a show together. That's Sylvia.
And she comes out to the Hamptons.
Oh, she comes to all my houses. She's always a frequent guest of mine. And a good friend,
Yes.
a very good friend of mine.
Okay, now I'm going to show
Oh my
you
God, how many more do you
another
have
one.
of this?
Well, as I said, a few. And this one,
Oh, this is Elizabeth Taylor and I when we did Little Foxes on Broadway together. And that was the opening party. We had a beautiful night. That was at the Rainbow Room. That was a while ago. And Liz and I are basically friends. She wants to do a voiceover on a show. She doesn't leave the house that much. In fact, she's right this moment, she's in the hospital with hopefully just a hip replacement. She had one before. But she's a good friend, good acquaintance, nice person, good family
you
person.
mingled with a lot of stars.
Oh yes, I've done a lot of mingling with celebrities. Oh God, this is an old oldie.
Yes, this is
Liza. I went to a wedding, the last wedding, and she's, to me, a wonderful person. She's a very devoted Catholic. She's a good family person. She sometimes doesn't talk to her sister. But if you need a favor, you wanted to do a show or a benefit, she's always available. She really is. And she's had a hard time, ups and downs. But anybody that's good to her mothers has to be a good person. She was a wonderful, she paid every one of her mother's debts off. I mean, she is a good person. To me, she's always been a yes person, and always helpful.
Well, that's nice. Okay, and last but not least,
I think
no, this is the one.
that's Palm Beach. That's my wife at the time. She passed away about 5 years ago. That's Ankie Johnson DeMaio. She was Mrs. Refson, Charles Refson's wife, Revlon, and we were married for 10 years. And that was one of the openings of my show. We did a show at the Poinsettia Playhouse, which I did lots and lots of shows in Palm Beach. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Forum. It was an opening. We did so many shows in Palm Beach, I don't remember the name of it. But we did, at the time, we did lots of shows with Buddy Rogers and Janet Gaynor, because they would like to see the stars that they would know. Today, the Poinsettia
And there is
Playhouse.
that theater in Palm Beach, or
The
there
Poinsettia
was.
Playhouse. The Poinsettia Playhouse.
No, I'm talking about the other one.
The Kravitz Center?
No, with Robert Goulet.
That's the Poinsettia Playhouse.
Oh, it is.
We did a lot of shows with Ann Hamilton, that's George Hamilton, his brother. We did a lot of shows with Mitzi Gaynor, Ginger Rogers. We did a lot.
Well, she was a very beautiful woman.
Thank you.
She very glamorous and a real lady.
Yes, I only marry ladies.
And I remember he used to call her Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson.
Well, she was known as Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah.
For 25 years. That was her last husband prior. She had Charles Refson, Johnson, and DeMaio. She died DeMaio.
She did. Yes, she did. That's true. So what do you think about show business out here in the Hamptons? What would you like to see out here?
Well, I think I've seen a great deal happening both at the Guildhall where you're involved in, and of course the Bay Street Playhouse. I remember when it started, it was just minute. They were begging for money, and now it's just taken off wonderful. And they always have a show once a year on Broadway or off Broadway, so they're doing really well. I think, and they do new writers, new directors, old producers. Sybil Shepherd, I must say, she's done a great job. I've met the lady 100 times. She's a great lady. And she knows what she's doing. With the whole thing, Judy Andrews and her husband, they all contribute a lot, and they do it almost on a comp basis.
Would you say that you have like a favorite actor that you worked with in a show?
A favorite actor that I worked in the show, I think Donald O'Connell, Rudy Giulio. Recently, I guess Ben Marine was a doll working with. We're doing a new show we didn't cast yet, but I'm meeting a lot of, and we're doing a show that I did in London, See You, on Thursday, which I'm bringing to New York City, probably in June or July, which that means it'll open next September, October. So, and we're starting the production now.
I'm always asking this question from people, and some people don't want to answer me.
I'm definitely not answering them. There's no way else. I'm not getting it.
In trouble. Yeah, you don't want to alienate anybody. Did you have any advice that you would give to people who want to break into the field that you're in? How to do it?
Well, I would always say, as my mother always said, never give up. If you really want something, you'll get it. But you mustn't give up. Your priority must be what you want to do.
And you just say, just keep plugging away?
Well, just getting any job you could possibly do. If it's sweeping your floor, I just went to see La Cage aux Folles, and the gentleman that sat me at the theater, at the Marriott Marquis, has sat me for at least, I would say, 30 years. Being an usher, but he has parts here and parts here, and he never gave up. And I don't think he will. And he will go on Broadway. It's just the right timing, the right place. Everything is timing, place, and push. Timing, place, and push.
It is. And most theater people like to work with plays that were already staged. Or what would you prefer to produce, or established show or from a new playwright?
Well, an established show is sometimes very, very easy to do, and much easier to get money for, to produce. But the main thing is, if you have a faith in anything, any book, there's so many books that come from the book to the play, and it takes 6 years to 8 years. So it's a long, costly time. But the majority of things that we have on Broadway at this moment, we have the musicals are some of a revival. It's very difficult to get a new musical because you're talking about $20 million minimum for a musical. And there's a revival called La Cage aux Folles, which is a revival, which is the best revival I've seen in many, many years. And the cost of the production is way over $40 million. And it's a revival. But when you see the costumes and the setting and the staging, you'll understand where it goes, like the producers.
Well, it's a far cry from home, the show.
Oh, yes. Well, we were supposed to win the Tony for it. It's a very good thing.
We thought it was expensive, but not like today.
No. Today, to produce a show, to produce a drama with a star is about $12 million. Without a star, it's from about $8 million.
So do you think that the people who put money in it, they make any money back, even if it's a success?
Oh, everybody makes money if it's a success.
Really? How long does it take?
You make a lot of money on the tour companies. It takes, from the time it opened on Broadway, from 6 months to a year to refurbish the producers, if it's a hit. And then you get checks for at least 3 to 7 to 10 years. You know, as you're touring, you get all these unexpected checks, and they pick up options, and they buy options, and it can make lots and lots of money.
Well, I always look at the flops, that how much effort and money went into it, and then everybody lost everything. I'm sure you remember that show that they made, a musical about Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, Marilyn. It's called Marilyn. Yeah, I remember. I did it. But it's a good
somehow I remember you were involved.
But the good thing is, if you go to Joe Allen's, which is our hangout, the theater hangout is on Joe Allen's, where you walk in, it's a nice, beautiful little restaurant. They serve hamburgers and what have you. But there must be at least 200 shows hanging, from a Betty Davis show to an Angela Lansbury show to a Rosa Russell show that opened and closed within a week. So, I mean, it's sometimes even a star can't carry a show. And sometimes, like The Boy from Oz, if it wasn't for Hugh Jackson, the show would have been a total disaster. But he was nice enough and wonderful enough to keep the show going. All the producers, all the backers made all their money back and a little profit. But that's the case that the star controlled the show. If it wasn't for him controlling the show and putting every effort and working there for 3 years, which is very unusual. Like Carol Channing worked for 8 years, you know, Ethel Merman worked for 6 years on shows. But for a star of that caliber to work 3 years consecutively because he wanted to make sure everything was paid back, he did a fabulous job. I mean, it was a great show, but the critics killed it. Now we have a show on Broadway called Dracula Musical. In one of the newspapers it says, Dracula sucks. But there's a lot of money behind the show. So with a lot of money behind the show, with the right PR and the right publicity and the right et cetera, you could string it. On Broadway, if a show lasts for 6 months on Broadway, with the union and equity and whatever have you, you're allowed to tour it. But it must perform 6 months. There's so many weeks in the month, yes. Otherwise, you cannot tour the show. That's a union, that's exactly what they call it.
I never knew that.
Yes, so that's a very important. So you try to, you know, run it as much as possible. There's shows, there was a show about 15 years ago called Frankenstein that a friend of mine produced, Joe Kipnis produced it. It was, I thought, a masterpiece. Closed the day after it opened. Some shows never open. We had a show called Breakfast at Tiffany with Mary Tyler Moore and Richard Chamberlain. They toured in Philadelphia and in Connecticut, and it came to Broadway. It had 1 or 2 previews, and it totally closed. And we had the same thing last year or this year with Farrah Fawcett. She performed on Broadway. It did about 10 or 12 previews, which I saw one of them. The producers closed the show. Of course, it takes a lot of strength for a producer to close a show before it opens. It takes an enormous amount of strength because you lose. You just lose. There's no revival in the situation.
Well, I remember a show closing many, many years ago. I was newly married. It was called Whoop Up. And
was that an Eddie Cantor show?
No. The music came from Martin Charnan and somebody else. And Dolores Gray was in it.
Oh, I love Dolores Gray. She did one of my shows. She did Dinner at 8.
And they had like the newspaper strike.
Oh.
So it closed like in a week. But there's one song in there that I always liked.
You're not going to sing it for us,
No.
are you? Thank you. Thank you. There is a God.
Well, I would sing it, except my voice is
Well, let's talk about
cracking.
Dolores Gray. Did you know her?
No.
You know, very few people know who she was, actually. But she was an MGM big star. She was a big musical star. She did several big Broadway shows. But, I mean, she's gone, unfortunately.
Oh, she is. See, but I remembered her name. Because she
very
was
few
in
people would. Out of 1,000, more would
Whoop Up.
remember.
I guess nobody else would. Maybe Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet would remember that because they sang a duet from that show.
Oh, really? Are they
Called
still alive?
Flattery. Yeah, I just read that they are going to appear someplace.
Yes, on Westbury.
Westbury Music
I just
Fair.
saw them a few days ago. Was it a week ago in Vegas? They did a show in Vegas. You know, I used to remember when I saw them at the Deauville Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida.
Oh my gosh, that's going way
and
back.
they were young and beautiful. They introduced a newcomer. At the Deauville, I was with my mother, I'll never forget, and they introduced this newcomer. They want them to be very successful, and it was Tom Jones.
Oh, Tom Jones.
I'll never forget that moment. And he's now very hot again.
Tom Jones or Steve?
No, Tom Jones.
Oh.
That's Steve. I mean, I'm sure they are. But people are getting revived and revived, thank God.
As long as they're breathing.
That's true, and some of them just wheel the chairs on and they just smoke a cigar. I remember seeing George Burns in Vegas at Caesar's Palace, and he was fabulous.
I read someplace recently that people are going to live for 150 years.
So you got 2 more years, you lucky girl. And you keep telling me you're going to die, you die. So lucky you are.
Yes, I
So what
think.
pills are you taking to preserve this long longevity?
Well, it's my secret. I'm not going to reveal that unless I get paid very well.
Well, it's a good secret.
Yes.
And you look very well, I must say, very
Oh,
well.
thank you. Well, I left my cane outdoors. I
hear you
wobbled
might
in
be
here.
doing a show.
Excuse me?
I heard you might be doing a show.
Yes, a musical. You said Broadway needs
Oh,
a musical.
They do, but it's very difficult.
But I'm starting like little steps. It has wonderful music, and I just
And do you have in your mind, everyone writer at this moment of my life has a character that they write about, and they want they want this person to star in it. They have this star in mind. Tennessee
Oh, yeah.
Williams,
No.
was it Tennessee Williams? I think it was Tennessee Williams, or no, it wasn't. But he had this star in mind to do a show, and he wrote it, the star didn't do it, then finally got Sally Fields to do it on Broadway.
really
But it was just recently. But people do. Do you have a star in mind for your show?
no.
So you created it just out of fiction? You didn't say, well, this would be a good part for Tom
no,
Cruise
actually,
or...
no.
Faye
Tom
Dunaway?
Cruise is already too old for the part.
Well, what are you looking for?
Well, the heroes are they're very young, a 21-year-old boy and like a 17-year-old girl.
Are there such things in this universe?
Well, people who are older could play the parts, you know. They could look younger,
Britney Spears?
maybe. I'm not really up on these new
Well,
stars.
the stars that like
Eddie
Madonna.
Cantor.
Like Madonna. Madonna did lots of shows as favors for writers. She did a secretary job on Broadway, and then she did something off Broadway, which was less than 2 years ago or 4 years ago. So celebrities or stars like this, there's so many shows on Broadway now that have cameos. They change the star. And like Timothy Hutton has a show that casts lots of great stars, Susan Sarandon, Judy Roberts. So, stars make a show sometimes.
They do. People like to see
And
stars.
a lot of stars do it, and they give all their money to the charity. They just do it for a friend or on occasion.
Yeah, that's very nice of them. Like people just come in groves to see a star.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I don't know
Sometimes you
why.
have a big star and the audience is empty. I saw a show in London.
Because if you have to pay.
Well, thank you. I saw a show in London recently with Anthony Hopkins, and the show, it was dead. There was nobody in the audience.
Oh, that's
And
sad.
he's a huge star. So you
Yeah.
really don't know what makes a hit.
Yes. Well, I'm sure if you went on Broadway, everybody would come and see you. You're so good looking.
Well, I tell you one thing, if I did a show with me in it, it would be a flop. But producing, I'm a little bit more aware of
You
producing.
create excitement wherever you go.
So do you, Judy. You create excitement. You even create mildew and all kinds of crazy things. But you're always there to work. I just admire you for your way of doing things are fabulous. The way you create a
thank
show,
you.
the way you
Well,
make
we
sure
could
it's on.
create a mutual admiration society. I admire you a great deal of all the things
Well, I admire you
you do.
because you've had a lot of suffering in your life, a lot of tragedy, and some people just don't go above that. You've gone over and above. You have three beautiful children, wonderful home, great friends, and accomplishments, which is very, very good.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Usually guests don't compliment me so much.
I try very hard not to, because
Yes.
compliments always deserve another compliment.
Well, this, would you believe it? We're almost, the half hour is almost gone.
Oh, my.
We were worried that perhaps we won't have enough to talk about, but I feel that if you would come back some other time, we would just talk for another half an hour, and I'm sure
I'd like
you
to
would
come
have a
back
lot of interesting
When the
things.
show when See You on Thursday is about to open, I'd like to talk all about it and tell you about the stars and how I found
Yeah,
them
then
in
I'll
London.
confiscate some more pictures from your gallery.
But then we'll have to be here for 10 years. You are
Yes,
returning them, I
because-
presume.
Yes, I am.
Good. And the right place, please.
And because you have just mingle with so many interesting people, and we didn't even talk about the Mardi Gras you went to, and
The float I
and
created.
Kentucky with the horse races, and a lot of other things you've been to, and Vegas. Oh, we didn't talk about Vegas.
Well, we have a lot more things to talk about eventually.
Yes, I'm going to invite you back.
I appreciate that. I would like to come
And
back.
so happy you could make it.
For you,
On
I
a short
fought.
notice, a short
Yes,
notice.
short notice. Short
You
notice.
didn't have time to rehearse.
I never rehearse.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I would like to thank the crew, Christine at the camera, and Matt, and what's his name? Lee.
Write it all down next time.
Write it
At
all
142, you have to write. It will not be, because
Lee. And, well, I have to remember all the people who work here.
they're all wonderful and very nice and very polite.
Yes.
And very knowledgeable, which is very good.
Yes, they are. LTV, it's wonderful here. It is,
Is it run by,
it's a non-profit organization, and it's basically Matt and John. I know the second name, but I just can't
well,
remember this
if
minute.
one wants to donate, what is the situation on
Oh, they had
how
a
does
big
it start?
fundraiser.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, a few weeks ago.
Do they have 1, 2, 4, 10 a year? What is
No,
just
that's
one?
just about once a year.
And it survives the whole year financially?
Yeah, they raised a lot of money. I was involved in that. I was helping out.
What did you actually do?
And this is the sign to cut off.
Well, it was nice talking to you, my darling.
It was, thanks for coming, and thank you everybody for letting me do this show, and see you next time on The Play is the Thing.